A lot of people love a good reincarnation story, so what if we combine that with one of the best anime in the world? What would happen if Luffy were reincarnated with his memories still intact? Sometime in the near future of One Piece, the Straw Hat Pirates stormed the Holy Land of Mary Jawaz. Their journey across the seas had brought them to the heart of the world's corruption, where the secrets of the Void Century and the One Piece lay shrouded in mystery, and an opponent unlike any other was waiting for them. Luffy, with his Gear 5 unleashed, radiated an aura of hope and rebellion as he led his crew into the most perilous battle they would ever face in their lives. As the Straw Hats split up to wreak havoc on the Celestial Dragons, the five elders began revealing themselves once more, each transformed into their mythical Zoan forms that embodied ancient, godlike yokai. Zoro faced Nesjuro, whose cursed katana pulsed with dark energy. Their duel was a symphony of precision and raw power, with Zoro unlocking his ultimate conqueror's haki, slicing through mountains of debris with every strike. It seemed like the elder could regenerate indefinitely, and every blow weighed heavier on Zoro as he began tiring out. It was a sheer war of attrition, but eventually Zoro emerged victorious. Despite suffering numerous blows, Sanji took to the skies against St. Marcus Mars, who embodied Itsume. Their battle was an aerial spectacle of fiery clashes, with Sanji's Ifrit Jambe blazing brighter than ever. After a grueling exchange, he delivered a decisive kick that extinguished even the Phoenix's regenerative flames before collapsing to the ground, barely conscious. Elsewhere, Nami, Usopp, and Robin faced St. J. Garcia Saturn, who tested their combined ingenuity and strength. Nami conjured violent storms to disorient the enemy. Usopp's pinpoint sniping created vital openings, and Robin's limbs crushed their foe in a decisive strategy. Though they triumphed, all three were left drained and injured. Franky and Brook combined their unique skills against the Elder Warcurry, whose gargantuan size dominated the battlefield. A perfectly synchronized assault dismantled the Colossus, but Franky's mechanical body was left in ruins, and Brook's spectral energy was nearly spent. Jinbei fought valiantly against the Saint Shepherd Jew Peter, a leviathan of immense power. His mastery of Fishman Karate unleashed a torrent of power strong enough to overcome the beast. But Jinbei's victory came at the cost of his own strength, leaving him barely standing. As the Straw Hats regrouped, battered and barely holding on, the throne room doors opened to reveal Imu. The sheer aura of their presence was suffocating, a being beyond mortality who wielded the power to warp reality itself. Luffy stepped forward, prepared to face Imu, but the God's Knights descended to intercept him. These celestial warriors, masters of haki and divine abilities, engaged the Straw Hats in brutal combat, keeping Luffy occupied while Imu began their systematic annihilation of the crew. Nami was looking at where Imu was 1 second, and the next he was gone, only to appear in front of her. Surprised, she backed away quickly, trying to build some distance between herself and Imu. Nami, weaponless and trembling, stood defiant but was cut down by Imu's ethereal blade without having the chance to even scream for help. Usopp, shaking yet resolute, fired a final shot that struck true, only to be obliterated in retaliation. Robin summoned all her strength to entangle Imu with countless limbs, but she was swiftly crushed. Franky shielded Brook with his battered frame, but both fell in a single, devastating blow. Sanji, too weak to stand, was incinerated while protecting the unconscious Zoro. Jinbei, Zoro, and Chopper did not even have a chance to react or try to protect their friends before they were overwhelmed, leaving only Luffy to face the insurmountable enemy. Luffy, drained but burning with fury, clashed with Imu in a desperate final duel. His Gear 5 bent reality into a surreal battleground where every blow sparked explosions of light and laughter. Though he pushed his powers to their absolute limit, Imu's reality-altering abilities countered his every move. Unraveling his attack abilities countered his every... The God's Knights restrained Luffy just long enough for Imu to strike the fatal blow, their ethereal attack piercing through him. As he fell, his Gear 5 form flickered and faded, leaving Luffy bloodied and defeated. In his final moments, he whispered the names of his crew, tears of frustration and helplessness streaming down his face as darkness consumed him. Luffy awoke to the sound of waves and seagulls, the warmth of the sun on his face, and the coarse sand beneath his hands. Opening his eyes, he found himself on the familiar shores of Fuchsia Village. Staring at his small hands, he realized he was a child once more. Memories of his journey and the loss of his crew flooded back, and tears welled as he clutched his straw hat tightly. He vowed to protect them this time, no matter what. With a renewed resolve burning in his heart, the adventure began anew. Stepping outside, Luffy wandered into the forest, seeking solitude to test his devil fruit powers. Stretching his arms, he was relieved to confirm his gum-gum abilities were still intact. He concentrated, remembering the elasticity of Gear 5, and to his astonishment, his body transformed. The world around him turned surreal and cartoonish as his wild, white-haired form re-emerged. The sight of his own immense power reignited his determination. He resolved to train harder than ever, especially in mastering Advanced Conqueror's conqueror's haki, the key to his previous battles. For weeks, he trained alone, pushing his body and willpower to new limits, his young form rapidly maturing in strength and technique. Years later, fate intervened again. On the day Sabo attempted to escape his oppressive parents and set out to sea, chaos erupted. The celestial dragon, St. Jalmak, arrived, his ship looming ominously over the docks as he prepared to capture Sabo. Luffy, now a boy far more skilled and dangerous than his years suggested, stood atop the hill overlooking the scene. Memories of the world government's cruelty flashed through his mind. Without hesitation, Luffy launched himself toward the ship. Stretching his arm, Luffy unleashed a powerful attack. His gigantic fist, crackling with advanced conqueror's haki, smashed into the celestial dragon's ship, obliterating it in one blow. St. Jalmak and his entourage were sent flying into the sea as the villagers watched in stunned silence. Sabo, shocked and awed, could only gape at the boy who had just saved him. The destruction of the celestial dragon's ship sent shockwaves through the world government. An emergency buster call was issued for Dawn Island, and the Navy fleet soon arrived. Giant warships surrounded the island, cannons primed to raise everything. Luffy stood firm, ready to fight, but the sheer scale of the fleet made even him pause. As the villagers panicked, a figure descended from the skies on a fierce gust of wind. Monkey D. Dragon. Dragon, Luffy's father and leader of the Revolutionary Army, had been tracking the situation. Impressed by the boy's strength, but aware of the dire circumstances, Dragon approached Luffy, urging him to retreat. He acknowledged Luffy's strength, but emphasized how not all battles could be won with strength alone. Reluctantly, Luffy agreed, realizing he couldn't protect everyone yet. With Dragon's help, the villagers, along with Sabo and Luffy, escaped before the island was destroyed. Dragon brought Luffy and the survivors to the Revolutionary Army's base camp. Sabo, inspired by both Luffy's strength and Dragon's ideals, chose to stay with the revolutionaries. Luffy, however, had different plans. Although he had reincarnated, his plans of becoming the Pirate King remained unchanged. Dragon saw the fire in Luffy's eyes and offered him guidance, not as a father, but as a fellow fighter against tyranny. At the base, Luffy trained alongside revolutionaries, honing his haki and developing new techniques. Though still young, his strength and resolve grew at an astonishing rate. His second chance at life was now a whirlwind of training, alliances, and preparation for a battle that would one day shake the whole world once again. As the years passed, Ace carved his own legend across the seas. He found the Mera Mera no Mi, formed the Spade Pirates, and eventually joined Whitebeard's crew, becoming one of its strongest and most loyal commanders. Meanwhile, Luffy, having trained extensively under Dragon, decided it was time to set sail. His bounty, already hefty from his exploits against the Celestial Dragon and clashes with the Marines, made him a notorious figure. Despite this, Luffy's heart was set on two things: reuniting with his future crew and becoming the Pirate King. Luffy's first stop was to find Kobe. He tracked down the young Marine hopeful and saved him from the clutches of Alvida, much like before. Kobe, inspired by Luffy's determination and strength, vowed to pursue his dream of becoming an admiral. However, Luffy was unable to locate Zoro, who seemed to have vanished. Disheartened but undeterred, Luffy set sail, confident their paths would cross again. Days turned into weeks as Luffy's journey continued. One sunny afternoon, he docked at a bustling port town, looking for supplies and information. As he walked through the streets, his senses heightened, and a familiar presence tugged at his memories. Turning a corner, his eyes lit up. There stood Zoro, clad in his signature green haramaki, his three swords gleaming in the sunlight. Luffy called out to him in excitement, grinning from ear to ear, rushing toward him with unrestrained excitement. Zoro turned, his expression unreadable at first. Luffy, unfazed by Zoro's demeanor, hurried toward him to give him a hug, but just before he reached him, Zoro unsheathed his swords and swung. Luffy, still unfazed, easily dodged. Zoro was not quick enough and braced himself for Luffy's counterattack, only to be hugged by him. He was momentarily confused and pushed Luffy away. He exclaimed that he was there to hunt Luffy in order to collect his bounty. Luffy, still grinning, offered him a deal. He proposed a duel where if Zoro won, he could claim Luffy's bounty. But if Luffy won, Zoro would join his crew and not leave until he was able to defeat Luffy. Zoro agreed, and without any hesitation, lunged forward, launching a ferocious attack with his three-sword style. The fight was intense, a clash of wills and abilities. Zoro's masterful swordsmanship and relentless determination pushed Luffy to his limits. Luffy, dodging and weaving, fought back with his advanced haki and gear 2 speed. The townspeople scattered, watching in awe and terror as the battle unfolded. Zoro unleashed his onigiri technique. Luffy dodged narrowly, countering with a haki-infused punch that sent Zoro flying into a nearby wall. Zoro staggered to his feet, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, but he refused to yield. Luffy unleashed a powerful attack, immobilizing Zoro without seriously injuring him. Zoro, panting and battered, stared at Luffy and refused to back down. Knowing Zoro's stubbornness, Luffy advised him not to waste his life away there if he wanted to become the greatest swordsman, but to live on and grow stronger in order to defeat him one day. For a moment, Zoro hesitated, the weight of Luffy's words sinking in. Despite their brief clash, he felt an odd sense of familiarity and trust in this strange, carefree boy. Finally, he sheathed his swords and accepted defeat. Luffy beamed, his grin wider than ever, welcoming Zoro to the crew. As the two left the battered town, Zoro couldn't shake the feeling that he had found a path worth following, even if he didn't fully understand why. For Luffy, it was the first step step in recreating the Straw Hat crew and ensuring that this time they would achieve their dreams together. With Zoro in the crew, it was now time to recruit the next member. Luffy and Zoro found Nami caught between her personal vendetta against Arlong and her desire to escape her painful past. Witnessing her determination, Luffy immediately offered her a place in his crew. When Arlong refused to release Nami from her servitude, Luffy demolished Arlong Park with a single devastating attack, declaring Nami to be his navigator. Moved by Luffy's resolve, Nami accepted her new role wholeheartedly. Similarly, when they found Usopp facing off against Kuro, Luffy stepped in and effortlessly overpowered the sly captain, dismantling his plans before they could fully unfold. Luffy's sheer confidence inspired Usopp to join, eager to grow stronger and tell stories of their adventures. At the Baratie, Luffy's charisma and strength were on full display as he convinced Sanji to follow his dream of seeing the All Blue. Don Krieg's fleet was obliterated in moments, and Gin was left humbled by Luffy's mercy. Sanji, after witnessing the strength and camaraderie of the crew, decided to leave the restaurant and join Luffy's quest. The crew's next major challenge came at the Baratie, where Dracula Mihawk arrived, chasing Don Krieg's remnants for sport. Zoro, eager to prove his worth, challenged the greatest swordsman in the world. The duel was breathtaking, with Zoro pushing himself harder than ever before. However, despite his progress from training alongside Luffy, Mihawk's skill was insurmountable. In the end, Mihawk defeated Zoro with his smallest blade, leaving the swordsman humbled but resolute in his vow to never lose again. As Zoro lay bleeding, Mihawk turned his gaze to Luffy. He noticed Luffy's strange presence and, noting the straw hat Luffy wore, challenged him to a fight. Mihawk unsheathed his black blade, Yoru, and stepped toward Luffy. The air grew tense as Luffy activated Gear 5, his hair and eyes glowing white as his body transformed into its chaotic, cartoonish form. The battle was a clash of titans. Mihawk's precise, calculated strikes met the unpredictable chaos of Luffy's Gear 5. Swords clashed against hockey-infused fists, sending shockwaves across the ocean. Luffy's creative use of his abilities turned the battlefield into a surreal spectacle, with Mihawk slicing through distorted reality with surgical precision. Despite Luffy's strength, Mihawk remained calm and methodical, testing the younger fighter with every move. At one point, Mihawk's blade grazed Luffy's cheek, drawing blood and leaving him grinning. Luffy launched a massive hockey-infused punch that Mihawk barely deflected. The duel continued, each combatant pushing the other to their limits. Eventually, Mihawk stepped back, sheathing his blade, satisfied with his assessment of Luffy. Zoro, despite his wounds, was inspired by both his defeat and Luffy's performance. He realized that if he wanted to be the world's greatest swordsman, he'd need to catch up to Luffy. The Straw Hat Pirates' journey through the Grand Line became a saga of rapid triumphs and unshakable camaraderie. Luffy, with his overwhelming strength and advanced abilities, led his crew through each challenge, shaping their legend. Arriving in Alabasta, the crew found a nation on the brink of collapse. Crocodile's schemes had torn the kingdom apart, leaving its people in despair. While his crew worked tirelessly to protect the kingdom and its citizens, Luffy faced Crocodile directly. The Shichibukai's mastery over sand proved futile against Luffy's haki, which nullified his Logia intangibility. The battle, though swift, was no less intense. Crocodile unleashed his deadliest techniques, but Luffy's advanced observation and Conqueror's haki overwhelmed him. With a single devastating blow, Luffy ended the fight, shattering Crocodile's ambitions and saving Alabasta from ruin. The crew departed as heroes, with Vivi bidding them farewell. Skypiea brought the crew to the clouds, where they discovered a land embroiled in its own conflict. The self-proclaimed god Enel, with his power of the Goro Goro no Mi, ruled through fear and lightning. Luffy, immune to Enel's electrical attacks due to his rubber body, fought the tyrant in a battle that transcended the skies. Enel's power was godlike, but Luffy's Gear 5 brought forth a chaotic creativity that even the self-styled deity couldn't anticipate. Their fight reshaped the battlefield, with Luffy's strikes landing like divine judgment. Enel, unaccustomed to such resistance, fell in defeat. His vision of a heavenly kingdom shattered. The Bell of Shandora rang, symbolizing the liberation of Skypiea and cementing the Straw Hats' place in legend. The Straw Hats arrived at Long Ring Longland, where everything was a bizarre length or height. After the Davy Back fight was won, the Straw Hats encountered a man who, to Robin's horror, was Marine Admiral Kuzan. The crew's next major test came unexpectedly. The Marine Admiral Kuzan appeared, his intent unclear, but his reputation unmistakable. As the embodiment of the Marine's chilling power, he sought to test Luffy's resolve. The battle began as an overwhelming display of Kuzan's mastery over ice, freezing everything in his path and threatening to end the Straw Hats' journey then and there. But Luffy, now a formidable figure, unleashed the full extent of his training and abilities. His Gear 5 form allowed him to manipulate the battlefield, countering Kuzan's freezing attacks with surreal and unpredictable movements. Each clash of haki and elemental force shook the landscape. Despite Kuzan's experience and composure, Luffy's relentless creativity and power broke through the Admiral's icy defenses. A final, powerful attack left Kuzan defeated, though not fatally so. The Admiral retreated, acknowledging the Straw Hats as a force unlike any other. The Straw Hat Pirates continued their meteoric rise, each victory cementing their reputation as a force to be reckoned with. After declaring war on the world government at Enies Lobby and rescuing Robin, the crew's exploits drew global attention. They recruited Brook after easily dispatching Gecko Moria and liberating Thriller Bark from its eerie grasp. Luffy's unyielding strength and the crew's unity elevated their status beyond that of ordinary pirates. News of Luffy's feats spread like wildfire. His defeat of Crocodile, Enel, Kuzan, and now Moria painted him as a singular figure in the pirate world. The Marines, struggling to control his rising influence, officially declared Luffy an Emperor of the Sea. The announcement sent shockwaves through the Grand Line, marking him as the youngest figure to attain such a title. His bounty skyrocketed, symbolizing his threat to the world government. Upon reaching Sabaudi Archipelago, the crew encountered the systemic corruption of the Celestial Dragons, exemplified by a slave auction at its core. Luffy, driven by anger, destroyed the auction house and freed the captives. This act drew the attention of the Marines, prompting Admiral Kizaru and a unit of pacifistas to intervene. The ensuing conflict was fierce. The crew, leveraging their training, engaged the Marines with full force. Luffy utilized Gear 5 to counter Kizaru's light-speed attacks, while the Straw Hats collaborated to neutralize the pacifistas. The confrontation concluded with Kizaru's retreat, marking a tactical victory. However, the experience underscored a critical realization for the crew. They could not depend solely on Luffy's strength in the battles ahead. Bartholomew Kuma, appearing as an agent of unexpected aid, offered the crew an unconventional solution. At Luffy's request, Kuma sent each crew member to a different location to train and grow stronger, ensuring they could stand beside their captain as equals. With a heavy heart, Luffy watched his crew vanish one by one, knowing it was necessary for their future. Determined to save Ace, Luffy wasted no time. Learning of Ace's capture and impending execution, he set sail for Impel Down alone. His arrival was nothing short of explosive. The once impenetrable prison shook under his power as he tore through its defenses, defeating the guards and liberating prisoners. The clash with the prison's fearsome warden, Magellan, was brutal. Magellan's venomous abilities proved lethal, but Luffy's mastery of Haki and Gear 5 turned the tide. With creativity and resilience, he overcame the poison and delivered a decisive blow, incapacitating the warden. The chaos engulfing Impel Down was unprecedented. Luffy freed not only Ace, but also countless other inmates, leaving the prison in ruins. The escape was a victory unlike any other, and set the stage for the war at Marineford. Kaido, ever the strategist, saw the turmoil following Luffy's rescue of Ace as the perfect moment to make his move. With news of the Marines' plans for Marineford falling apart, Kaido turned his attention to Luffy, a rising emperor he viewed as a growing threat. Gathering his beast pirates, he pursued Luffy and Ace to a remote island, determined to eliminate them and reinforce his dominance. The attack was disastrous. Kaido, with his immense strength, and the beast pirates pushed Luffy and Ace into a desperate fight for survival. Even with their combined power and strong bond, Kaido's strength seemed unbeatable. Luffy's Gear 5 struggled to counter Kaido's mastery of Conqueror's Haki and his mythical Zoan form. Ace fought with determination, his flames lighting up the battlefield as he unleashed powerful attacks. However, the sheer number of beast pirates and Kaido's relentless ferocity left the brothers on the edge of defeat. When hope seemed lost, a silhouette appeared in the distance. Shanks and the red-haired pirates, having discovered Kaido's plans, arrived to balance the fight. The clash between two emperors shook the island, with Shanks' Conqueror's Haki splitting the skies. The red-haired pirates took on the beast pirates, giving Luffy and Ace the opportunity they needed. With Shanks holding off Kaido, Luffy unleashed his full strength. Using his advanced Conqueror's Haki, he pushed Gear 5 to its limits, transforming the battlefield into a surreal realm that even Kaido struggled to handle. Luffy's blows carried the weight of his past failures and determination, each strike representing his promise to protect his crew. In a final, powerful exchange, Luffy delivered a devastating attack that sent Kaido crashing to the ground. Although the battle was victorious, it came at a cost. Afterward, Kaido's forces were scattered, and the Beast Pirates' reign of terror began to collapse. As the dust settled, Luffy and Shanks shared a quiet moment under the setting sun. Luffy, trusting Shanks implicitly, revealed the truth about his previous life. His death at the hands of Imu, the fall of his crew, and his reincarnation with a second chance to change the world. He spoke of the crushing weight of his memories and the urgency driving his every action. Shanks listened intently, his usual playful demeanor replaced by a rare seriousness. He acknowledged the enormity of Luffy's burden, promising to stand by him when the time came for the final battle against the world government. Their bond deepened, with Shanks recognizing not only Luffy's strength but also the depth of his resolve. With Kaido out of the picture and Shanks firmly on his side, Luffy's reputation grew rapidly. Across the world, people were in awe or fear as the young emperor continued to prove himself. While the Straw Hats spent 2 years honing their skills, Luffy worked on reshaping the balance of power on the seas. He tied up loose ends and built alliances that would prepare him for the bigger battles ahead. One of these challenges was Doflamingo, the ruthless warlord controlling Dressrosa. With no need to worry about his crew's safety, Luffy unleashed the full strength of Gear 5 and advanced Conqueror's Haki. The battle was brief but decisive. Luffy destroyed the infamous birdcage and crushed Doflamingo's intricate schemes. This victory shook the underworld, firmly establishing Luffy as a rising emperor of the sea. With Ace by his side, Luffy approached Whitebeard to propose an alliance. Whitebeard, impressed by Luffy's strength and his connection with Ace, agreed. The Whitebeard pirates and Straw Hats formed a powerful partnership, shifting the balance of power on the Grand Line. Luffy's next mission was freeing Wano, a country suffering under Kaido and Orochi's rule. With support from Whitebeard's fleet and Ace, Luffy led a bold attack. The fight was intense, but their combined strength defeated Kaido's remaining forces and gave hope back to Wano's people. During this journey, Luffy formed a strong bond with the Minks, led by Inuarashi and Nekomamushi. He helped defend their home, Zoo, from outside threats, forging another critical alliance. This, along with the liberation of Wano, weakened the world government's control and forced the Marines into frantic preparations for the coming war with the Emperors. The Marines, still recovering from the collapse of their plans at Marineford and the loss of the Shichibukai system, were struggling. Fleet Admiral Sakazuki ramped up their efforts, knowing they had to face Luffy's growing alliances. This brewing conflict became known as the War of the Conquerors, with Luffy at the center as a major threat to the world government. After 2 years of chaos, Luffy's name became a symbol of rebellion. The Straw Hat Pirates reunited, stronger and more determined than ever. Their next destination was Egghead Island, home to the brilliant scientist Dr. Vegapunk. Luffy hoped to find answers there that could give him an even greater advantage. On the Thousand Sunny, the crew sat together as Luffy shared a secret he had carried for years. The memories of a past life, the loss of his crew, and his fight against Emu and the Celestial Dragons. The weight of his words was heavy, and the crew, usually cheerful, fell silent. They now understood why Luffy was so determined and why he had grown so strong so quickly. At Egghead Island, the crew shared this information with Vegapunk. The scientist immediately realized the importance of Luffy's memories and the danger posed by Emu and the Five Elders. Committed to helping, Vegapunk joined forces with the Straw Hats to create a plan. Using his expertise, Vegapunk analyzed Luffy's memories and began crafting strategies. His work combined advanced technology with the knowledge of Haki and Devil Fruits, laying the groundwork for the fight against the world government. Together, they prepared for the battles that would decide the future of the seas. Vegapunk also shared his knowledge of Emu's possible abilities, theories based on the Void Century's history and the powers wielded by the Celestial Dragons. The crew, bolstered by this newfound clarity, trained and strategized with even greater resolve. Egghead's advanced technology and Vegapunk's defection had not gone unnoticed. The Marines, under Sakazuki's orders, launched a full-scale assault on the island, sending fleets of warships, pacifistas, and vice admirals. At the forefront of this attack were Kizaru and Admiral Fujitora, and their combined might posed an unprecedented threat to the Straw Hats. The battle for Egghead erupted into chaos as the Straw Hats fought valiantly to defend the island and Vegapunk's invaluable work. Zoro clashed with Fujitora in a breathtaking duel of swordsmanship and gravity, while Sanji confronted Kizaru in a battle of speed and firepower. The rest of the crew held off the relentless waves of Marines, showcasing the fruits of their 2 years of training. Just as the tide began to turn against the Straw Hats, the revolutionaries arrived. Led by Monkey D. Dragon, their forces descended upon Egghead, creating a war zone that shook the very earth. Dragon's presence alone was enough to inspire hope and fear, his mastery of weather manipulation turning the battlefield into a storm-ravaged arena. The revolutionaries clashed with the Marines, their sheer numbers and determination creating an opening for Luffy and his crew to strike back. Dragon, fighting alongside his son for the first time, brought with him the full might of his ideals and convictions, lending the Straw Hats an advantage that began to shift the battle in their favor. As the battle raged, Luffy's growing power and influence became undeniable. Even the admirals, for all their strength, could not suppress the combined might of the Straw Hats, Vegapunk's ingenuity, and the revolutionary army. With the Marines driven back and Egghead Island secure, the Straw Hats and their allies regrouped to prepare for the battle that would define the future of the world. Luffy, standing tall despite the wounds and exhaustion of the previous fight, finalized plans with Vegapunk. The scientist, inspired by Luffy's resolve and the information from his past life, worked tirelessly to craft weapons, strategies, and countermeasures tailored to the overwhelming forces they would soon face. Luffy called on his allies from across the seas. The Heart Pirates, the Kid Pirates, the Grand Fleet, the Minks, the remnants of Whitebeard's crew, and even Shanks himself answered the call. Messages were sent far and wide to rally anyone willing to stand against the world government's rule. The revolutionary army, led by Dragon, began mobilizing its forces, ready to march on Mary Jawaz and confront the power at its core. The Straw Hats focused on their preparations, each member playing their part in the plan. Zoro worked in silence, sharpening his blades with precision. Sanji tested new recipes to fuel the crew's strength and endurance. Nami, Usopp, and Frankie collaborated with Vegapunk to integrate advanced technology into their arsenal. Robin immersed herself in the knowledge of the Void Century, providing critical insights to Luffy and the crew. Everyone gave their best, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. As allies began arriving, Egghead Island transformed into a center of rebellion. Ships bearing the flags of the Straw Hats and their supporters filled the harbor, while their crews worked tirelessly to prepare for the battle. The atmosphere on the island was charged with purpose. This was not just a fight for personal vengeance or glory. It was a battle for freedom and the future of the world. Luffy stood at the front of the Thousand Sunny, gazing out at the gathered fleet. The memories of his past life weighed heavily on him, but the sight of his crew and allies gave him strength. This time, he was not alone. Together, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. With the final preparations complete, the Allied forces set sail for Mary Jawaz. The journey was marked by a growing tension, the calm before the storm. As they approached the Red Line, the sight of the Holy Land looming above the clouds, reignited the memories of Luffy's past life. The weight of the upcoming battle pressed on everyone's shoulders, but no one wavered. The Straw Hats stood together at the Sunny's helm, their expressions a mixture of determination and resolve. For Luffy, this was the culmination of everything he had lived through, not just in this life, but the one before. He clenched his straw hat in his hand, the symbol of his promise to Shanks and the hope of a free world. As the fleet approached Mary Jawaz, the skies darkened and the air grew heavy with anticipation. The Holy Land bristled with defenses, from fleets of warships to the ominous shadow of the Five Elders and their forces. Imu's presence could be felt even from afar, an oppressive aura that seemed to challenge the very idea of resistance. This time, however, Luffy and his allies were ready. With his past mistakes as lessons, his friends by his side, and the strength of countless allies, he was prepared to finish the fight he had started in his previous life. The final battle for freedom, justice, and the future of the world was about to begin. Make sure to smash the like button for more One Piece videos.